Remember the last time you played a tabletop RPG and your friend cast the fireball spell, killing all the enemies and exploding your whole adventuring party? I know they say that living well is the best revenge. Well, how about you play as a living fireball spell and let revenge be the best revenge with Battlezoo Bestiary's Year of Titans. Once a month for the next year, you'll receive a unique playable species you won't find anywhere else for your D&D 5th Edition or Pathfinder 2e games. Now you can play as a living spell, a skillful cyclops, a wicked troll, or even a mighty kraken. And those are just the ones I can pronounce. An hair jar?
It's pronounced ein hair-jar.
Say tires?
It's satyrs.
Okay, I think I got this one. Dual hand.
Doulahan. It's a headless horseman from Irish folklore, you gigantic tit.
Every month you'll receive a new PDF or Foundry VTT module, along with handmade battle maps, tokens for your virtual tabletop, both static and animated, and detailed in-world lore entries, allowing you to easily add these unique species to your next tabletop session. All this and more for less than a monthly Egg McMuffin. Delicious. Head on over to the link in the description to learn more, because if you sign up for the Kickstarter, you'll get a bonus species a year early, the Mighty Titan. That's 13 unique species throughout 2025 to amaze your friends and family. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to call my dungeon master and tell them that I'm going to be playing as Godzilla from now on. Godzilla.
Hey, we're live. Look at that.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Roll for Combat Live.
Wow, is Mark really loud, or is it just me?
I don't know. Maybe Mark's excited.
Mark is excited.
Am I loud? I don't know.
I don't know.
Did you turn me up?
No, I did not. Everyone's at the same level.
My mic is in the same place where it normally is.
Hey. Okay, good. No, we were going to do, so the original topic, we were just going to talk about Dolanwood, and we're going to have all the Dolanwood people on. Dolanwood.
Dolan.
The funny thing is that
like,
while Steven was showing it to me, he had like a folder about it, and he had named the folder Dolanwood, like Golem. So,
okay, well, that's what it's called in my mind. So,
fair enough.
I'm correct.
For a second, I was like, maybe Steven was right the whole time because the folder was called that, but then all the files inside were
okay, well, I'm going to change the name of all the files and resend them to you. That way you'll be like, oh, he's right. Ooh,
yeah, he was right.
Ooh.
100% accurate predictions.
Ooh. Derek, we haven't seen you in years.
Well, you know, I've been pretty busy with work, and I going through some mental health issues, and I've been working on that. So, you know, I've been preoccupado.
So, which Titan in the Year of Titans do you want to play the most? Now, I don't have
Titan which of the ancestries?
Of the ancestries. Now, I don't have Smurfs in there because I know you wish you could play a Smurf.
No, although that exists. And by the way, in an ultimate, you know, stick it to me. Now I'm getting ads for the Smurf game.
Good. Good. You deserve those ads.
I do. You know what though? I'm in. Let's go. I'll throw away my whole channel and we'll just become Smurfs the channel.
You heard it here first. It's Derek. It's now the Knights of the Last Smurf.
I've done more for less. So
Knights of the Last Smurf.
Yes.
Or Smurfs of the Last Call.
Smurfs of the Last Call. So
he didn't pick one of the ancestries for
he didn't
just
pick.
Smurfs.
Well, what are they real quick?
I think Derek would not want to be a living spell because they're not human enough for him.
But
living spell's kind of neat. You take your favorite spell and then become it, and then you live it.
That actually I would be more okay with, because it is so like crazy and fantastic that it's fine because it's not biological. So actually, I think I'd be more likely to be a living spell.
Maybe he would play a troll that had on one of the little hats so they can pretend to be a human, and then he'd be pretending to be a human.
Well, if you look at the art,
or a Smurf because they have a hat.
To the right of Derek, the green one, that is a witch living spell, and You can
Primal
see
Witch Living Spell.
Yeah, and they even have, look at that, I even gave them, I wasn't in the art order, but I gave them a little raven, as you can see, a little living spell raven.
There's actually several living spells there, it looks like. Maybe?
No.
No.
The
art is small. You're right.
Nope.
But there's a Doulahan over there on the left.
Doulahan on the left. There's a red cap on the left. Satyr to the right. Titan in the upper right-hand corner. That's a Titan. And upper left-hand corner is a troll. So there you go. Titans are cool. The Titans, you basically play a kaiju. And Mark wrote it, and there's a whole new mechanic in there that... brand new mechanic. It's basically you just...
To be clear, you are like a mortal born of a spark from a kaiju god beast. So you are not like 1,000 feet tall.
Then I'm out. That's
sorry.
But you can become 1,000 feet tall.
You can become huge.
Yeah, you become pretty big. You start off pretty big. And you also, as you increase the spark, you're like God spark, you can basically become a god. It's kind of cool.
You become more godlike, at least in certain ways. It doesn't necessarily make you immortal, but the heritages do something that no heritages have done in Pathfinder 2.
It's really neat.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I think the living spell concept is pretty cool. I mean, and as far as normal ancestries that you guys put out, these are much more reasonable. Satyr, troll. I can somewhat get behind these.
What about ogre?
Sure. Listen, if it was a playable race in EverQuest, it's okay with me.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Oh wow, EverQuest is the bar.
We should have like a thing on the Kickstarter, because Steven's been getting quotes from different people that is like, I really cannot stand the Year of Monsters or the Year of Legends, but I think I can tolerate some of these. Derek Melinda.
It's like, I hate everything, but I tolerate this Kickstarter. Derek Melinda.
In the land of crap, mediocrity is king. But yeah, so no, I mean that's pretty, that's cool stuff. I mean, again, I'm not the target demo, especially these days. I still like case in point, the last couple of weeks or last couple of months, I've been just rereading some fiction, and I've reread Wizard of Earthsea, Tombs of Atuan, and Fellowship of the Ring. So
God,
I'm pretty, standard and normal.
That is normal. I'll give you some stuff to read. I'm actually reading a 16-book series. I'm up to book 9.
Also, I refuse to read a book series now unless it's finished.
Oh, this one's finished. It's 16 book. It's completely done, and they're all connected. It's the Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb.
You've been reading that for a while now. So I guess it's 16 books.
4.5 million words.
That makes sense.
It's a huge series. And I read a chapter a night before I go to bed.
Yeah, that's what I kind of try to do these days.
So.
Yeah, Anthony, Earthsea Cycle is my favorite fantasy series novel of all time. And I love Ursula K. Le Guin a lot.
Yeah, well, if this Robin Hobb series,
she trumps The Good Professor for me.
It's really, really good because it's all one. Yeah, that's it. The Live Ship Traders. The Live Ship Traders is the first trilogy. The first book is okay. The second book is good. The third book is ridiculous how good it was. I couldn't stop reading it. It's so good. And what's neat is that the world starts off kind of messed up, and then each book expands on the world changing, and they take place in different parts of the world. So one book will say, "Hey, I heard some weird things that were going on down in the other part of the world," and then they switch back and forth between the series, which is really neat. I've never really seen that before.
Are the other world parts and protagonists characters who do something?
Well,
unlike Fitz.
No,
I stopped reading that series because the main character of the first books, Fitz, would just be like, it looks like this guy is gonna murder everybody I care
how far
about.
did you go?
You know what I'm gonna do? Nothing.
That's not true.
I'll just sit.
Wrong.
Yeah, he's probably going to. Yeah,
Wrong.
really.
Well,
no, now he
Fritz
said he's gonna kill everybody.
Stop.
But yeah.
Well, because first of all,
I shouldn't do anything. I am an assassin. I could assassinate him, but nah. He killed everybody. How could I have known?
Fitz
it was just
a kid in the first book. The first 2 books are definitely probably, I wouldn't say the weakest, but he definitely doesn't do the most. The third book he does a lot in the third book.
I read the third book. He only did things because he didn't do things when he should have done them.
All right. Well,
well, Mark, we're not all paragons of action like you.
I know.
Sometimes we hesitate, and it causes consequences.
I know. Actually, I kind of like the third, and then the fourth, fifth, and sixth are about the live
I didn't read
shows.
anything after the third. I was just like,
it gets really good. Well, now it goes back to Fitz, and Fitz is in his late 30s, and he is messed up, man. Like it's good. It's really good. I love it. So, anyways, so I want
Let's
to talk
get to our topic. Steven thinks that Wizards does not want or need fans. I think that wording for it might not be right of what they don't want or need, but I'm very interested in Steven's take.
You're so pedantic. It's ridiculous. All right, let me explain. All right.
I love it.
So here's the thing. Right now, there's a very fascinating thing going on in the world of video games for those who aren't paying attention. Is that, very long story short, is some very, very expensive video games. These video games now take 5, 6, 7, 8 years to make. Okay? Video games used to take 2 or 3 years. Now they take 7 years. They cost $200 to $400 million. And these games have to succeed, okay? They not only do they have to succeed, they have to make all their money back. Sony put out a game that cost over $200 million. It was canceled within 2 weeks and taken down because it did so poorly. And in fact, they just shut down the studio. So they've lost probably $250 million, all right? Ubisoft just released Star Wars. They thought this thing would do great. It did terrible. It got mediocre reviews. Ubisoft's stock is down 95%. I mean,
They went down 95, so
yes.
They only are at 5% of where they were before.
Oh yeah,
so
it used to be in the hundreds. Yeah, look at it. Look at Ubisoft.
Holy moly.
Yeah, they've been like their stock was like 100. It's now like 8. They lost. Yeah, I mean, there's severe consequences. They're delaying all their games. Like, you can look it up. They're in real trouble. So EA, Electronic Arts, has their big game, which is Dragon
Age Veilguard?
Yeah, Dragon Age Veilguard. So Dragon Age is their big tentpole game. And I knew right away it was in trouble because it's like they announced it only just a little while ago. And I'm like, that's always bad when they announce their biggest game of the year only a few months before it's supposed to come out. And then they do almost no previews. Like, that's like such a red flag. So this is what happened. If you wrote anything negative about this game in your previews, even 1%, didn't.
Wasn't the game announced in 2018?
It was, but they only showed it a few months ago.
Understood.
And it was shown using a very cartoon style, because before this, it's a very dark and serious game. It's a very like R-rated, hard fantasy game. They showed it, and it has like a Fortnite style, and everyone's like, what does that mean? And then what happened is the reviews came out 2 days ago, and what was fascinating was the first review I saw was by a site that's like huge, a big video game site that said, we aren't reviewing Dragon Age yet, and here's why. And they went on to explain that EA only gave the code to people that were pretty much guaranteed to give them a positive review. And if you so much as said one minor thing about this game, they didn't want anyone to review it. And sure enough, the Metacritic score is like in the 80s. It's okay,
but it's bifurcated. I looked at that. It's what you were saying. I think there's a bunch that gave it 100 or like 90, yes. And there's a decent amount that gave it around 80 that were near that median, and then there's also some that are starting to give it 70 or 60, but they usually say they're in progress reviews because they didn't have time to finish the game yet.
Yeah,
I guess because they didn't give them the game earlier or something.
But let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's actually, believe it or not, there's a Pulitzer Prize awarded, right, for critics, and for writing critiques. there is a distinct difference, right, between being an independent sort of reviewer or critic and viewing a movie and seeing it and, you know, giving your honest opinion, and people, in theory, are paying you for your, your publication or your whatever used to be part of a newspaper because they like your honest, unbiased opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're describing now is not that. It's just marketing. And if it's just marketing, then yeah, why wouldn't they just give it to people that they know are going to market well for them?
Well,
like they're going out of their way to find, right? What's the word? Not a non-detractor, right? A promoter, a net promoter, right? They're trying to find promoters within the community, and it's a sort of a quid pro quo situation. You give us a good review, you get an exclusive access, and you'll get a ton of views on your YouTube channel or to clicks to your website, and everybody prospers, right? But that's no longer criticism. That's no longer a review. That's just you're part of the marketing machine. You're just part of the cogs in the machine. And if I'm a marketing person or I'm one of these companies, why would I ever, if you're an RPG producer, why would you ever give me an advanced copy of your game, right? Like it's high risk, low reward. I'm probably going to nitpick it to death, and rightfully so. Companies that used to send us stuff no longer send us stuff because they said, oh, these guys get our products and then they don't like them and they publish a video about them. And like, why would we do that?
Well, I'm going to get to that.
No, I mean, it makes sense.
No,
I think it makes sense.
You're right, except I'll get to that.
Okay.
So what happened is that more people are talking about the controversy rather than the game itself. Like everyone's talking about, because these are not small sites. I'm not talking about like Derek's site. No offense, Derek. But these are people that are these are people with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers on YouTube. Like these are big sites, and they didn't get it. And that's what their reviews. Their reviews were like, yeah, we have 1 million, we have over 1 million viewers. We have reviewed all the past Dragon Age games. We have wikis on the game. It's one of our favorites. And we said one negative thing in a preview. EA said, nope, we're not giving it to you. And the reason is that a lot of these games, it used to be called, I don't know if this is true anymore, but it used to be the amount a game sells in the first 333. The amount a game or movie sells in the first 3 days is the amount it then will sell in the next 3 weeks and then 3 months. So those first 3 days are key because it will make a third of its money in the first 3 days. And then it'll make another third of its money in the first 3 weeks. And it makes the rest of its money in the next 3, 4 months, years, whatever. So they have to make sure those 3 days are key. So what they did is they seeded it so that everyone who's on Metacritic sees, oh, this thing is getting good reviews. It has a Metacritic score. I'll go buy it. It's still in the top 3 in Steam in pre-sales, so it's doing really well. And they regulated who was able to see it to a point that has not been seen before in the video game world. Now, let me back up, because what's been happening in the movie and TV world, if anyone watches like The Critical Drinker or any of the other, there's a lot, but I'll just say Critical Drinker because he's kind of leading the charge on this, is that he went on to explain, like back in the day, when there was these things called newspapers, I love how he described it. It was like, there used to be these pieces of wood that were pressed flat, that were given to you every day, that you would then read. These things called newspapers and magazines. If you became a critic, it took a long time. It was like, you were paid to do it. Like Siskel and Ebert, they started off as reporters and then eventually worked their way up to becoming critics. And because this is your full-time job, you almost had to play nice because A, you were getting paid to do this on a prestigious paper and there's not that many jobs. And, it almost was an unwritten rule that you would always find something good about these movies or something good about it, unless it was total garbage. And these, movie reviews were kind of, I wouldn't say positive, but they were, it was considered a prestigious position.
Siskel and Ebert had a fairly binary system of thumbs up and thumbs down,
right.
And there were plenty of films that got the thumbs down.
No, but the point is, it wasn't a 1 out of 10. It was thumbs down, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, That's
Right,
a zero.
right. Hey, you gave Lord of the Rings. You gave the first Lord of the Rings movie a thumbs down. So there you go.
Right. And by the way, the other thing that's interesting to note, which is another thing that I think people have forgotten about, and I see somebody, classic somebody grousing on Derek thing, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, a reviewer is inherently biased.
Yeah, of course.
I like the things I like.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is you shouldn't need nor want my approval of some game that you like. But if you have found that my reviews are helpful in the past and that maybe our tastes align, or you like the sort of particular critical angle I bring, then I become valuable to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing's true for these reviewers. But nowadays, I feel like a lot of people don't have a platform. They don't have a stance. They're not, and a lot of people also interpret game reviews as some sort of like, they're saying the game sucks and it's unplayable, so it must be unplayable for everyone, rather than viewing it as they're saying they didn't like it.
Oh yeah, I know. But that's what Metacritic's for.
But I'm saying that I blame that on the audience then.
Oh yeah. No,
the audience is being woefully uninformed, like almost negligently, willfully uninformed, and they're reacting emotionally instead of logically, and they keep demanding these crazy, ridiculous movies and games. The game companies give them to them, and then they don't like them, and then they're like, they don't understand why.
Yeah, but it's actually turning out to be it's gotten bad because first it used to be, well, we just want movies to have good reviews because we're trying to put out good products, all right? Then it became, and this has become more common with the rise of Metacritic, people's bonuses are tied to the Metacritic score. And this is infamous which video game was it? I forgot which video game it was. It was some video game. It had to get like at least an 85 for everyone to get a bonus. And it got an 84. And so no one got their bonus. And I forgot which game it was, but people still talk about that.
That's like the Vegas fix is in, like they're trying to cut it out.
Fallout New Vegas. Everyone knows. Okay, everyone's saying, Fallout New Vegas. It's very well known. It's like people are like, oh my God, really? Like, you missed it by 1 point.
That's why you create a gradient scale of bonus structure. But no, like Omanal mentioned, I'm not a video game person, but Omanal mentioned this. I only say this because this is also happening in the TTRPG space. Omanal mentioned Cyberpunk 2077. Think back also to the way, if you're a game company and you're making one of these games, now you have people who will pay you money for what is an unfinished game. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're like, pay for
that's what live services, baby.
And so then they get this copy of a game which is not complete and has bugs, and that sours their experience, and they're shocked that the pre-release version of the game that they paid for early access for is problematic. And it's like, well, what did you expect to happen? Well, they're like, well, obviously I expected it to be completely fine and perfect. Well, then no, then that wouldn't be a pre-release. It wouldn't be an alpha release. It would just be the game.
Right.
They just knew that they could get your money today instead of 2 years from now. So they took it because you're an idiot.
So what I was getting at is that it's gotten to the point that these companies and these games are so big and they're so powerful that if they don't succeed, they would release, and movie studios were like this. Remember movie studios? There used to be this thing called a mid-tier movie. And those were movies that would make $100 million. And that's it. They wouldn't make 30 million. They wouldn't make $1 billion. They make $50 to $100 million. And all those movies. Those are all like the okay movies. They would come out, they would do fine, then they would come on home video. Those are gone. Okay, they don't exist. Like, look it up. Like, those are rom-coms. Rom-coms are very, popular. They're all gone. Okay, they literally don't exist. The only movies that exist are everything's a blockbuster. Everything's a tentpole. Everything has to make $1 billion. And if it doesn't, we go out of business. Like, everything. And that is now permeating to everything. It is in television, like the Hulk TV show, She-Hulk. That thing costs like $200 million. Okay, that TV show. It's like, what were you spending that money on? Okay, it was like ridiculous. The Acolyte cost, I think it was $190 million. You know, it's like these TV shows are getting out of control. Lord of the Rings cost $1 billion, and if you
Amazon TV show,
an Amazon TV show, and if you include the licensing fees, it was $2 billion for one season of a TV show.
Well, to use a baseball analogy, right, folks.
Yeah.
What fills the stands? You know, small ball or home runs.
But everything has to be a home run, and they have to never miss.
And what happens when you swing for the fences all the time?
You strike out a lot. Yeah.
And so if forever, it's almost like a hedge fund, right? Or like a venture capital fund.
Yeah.
Hey, look, if I put a couple $100 million into this, couple $100 million into this, if somebody's hitting 300, we go, hey, that's a pretty good hitter, right? So it's like, hey, if I can have 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 of these crazy expensive movies go and do $1 billion at the box office, then the 200 million I put in, great, cool, we're up $200 million.
By the way, that someone mentioned the Terrifier movies. The Terrifier movies are fascinating because these movies cost like those. That is like such a unicorn that is not only going to be studied by every single studio extensively, but next year and the next couple years, you're going to see 500 Terrifier movies released.
I don't actually know what Terrifier is.
The Terrifier is a movie that was basically made, the first one, for like $100,000, and it made through word of mouth and through fan festivals a couple of maybe $500,000, $1 million, and it is beyond gory. It goes over the line to levels that like it just is. It's way too much, even for people like my friends. They love gore fest. They love horror.
I hate that stuff. Yeah.
Well, they're like, yeah, it's too much. Like, this is way too much. The Terrifier 3 came out in theaters like 2 weeks ago. It made $20 million. It cost like $3 million. So obviously it's making a lot of money.
Well, our society's collapsing. We're getting closer to Roman spectacle.
Might as well. And basically, you're 100% right. It is Roman. It is feeding into lions, because in the movie, they actually, this is the big no-no. Not only do they kill kids, which is like a big no-no, then they show them. They show them like dismembered. I was like, why? I'm like, okay,
I'll tell you why.
Way
because
too
apparently
far.
it's made a lot of money, and that's what people want.
Yeah, now it's made over $50 million. I mean, I guess that's what people want. They're like, it's you're right. We're up to Roman times. We're up to the bread and circuses.
Yeah.
So this brings me. I wanted to explain all that. So this brings me to what is going on, and how does this have to do with WoTC and D&D? And I'm going to explain. Because
first theory is that because, according to you, everything has to do with WoTC.
That's a good theory, Derek.
Well, for this channel, I'd be happy to talk about movies and video games for the next 2 hours if you want.
That's fair.
I can do that, no problem.
This time, Derek, you have to pay attention to recent events, because WoTC, or in particular Hasbro, right? They fired Dixon Dubois, who was in charge of outreach, especially to content creators, to independent content creators and critiquers, while posting a decently high profit and giving money out to shareholders.
Yeah, but didn't he fumble the bag when it came to explaining to them what they could and couldn't show, and there was a bunch of backlash because of that, right?
That wasn't him.
We don't know who it was. We actually don't know who that was.
Oh, okay.
We don't exactly know who it was, but I generally keep up with other YouTubers, and the sense I get from them is that Dixon was earnest.
Right.
And especially after the OGL.
Or maybe he had a rampaging coke habit, and, we just don't know.
I don't think so.
Wow.
He was earnest, and especially after the OGL, he seemed like he really wanted to help and to make things right. Now, whether he had the power to do that at WoTC or not, and to keep the things that the types of promises that they were trying to make is unclear. But from all that I've seen, just from other YouTubers, or even if you look at the EN World articles or other articles by the by the people who reported, who also talked to Dixon because he was their contact, were all kind of saying that this was the one of the people who was able to get credibility back from the OGL, and so to fire him now is definitely sending a message at the very least.
So you mentioned that there was some nasty stuff announced at the World Magic. So what was that? Because actually, I want to hear that because I think it's all tied together.
Well, I don't necessarily know that has to do with the concept of critics and reviews, but basically, what people are calling derogatorily the Fortnitification of D&D of Magic is occurring. So next year they're releasing even more sets, but.
Is that possible? I mean, weren't they
Yes.
releasing one set a week?
Well, I mean, if you include, I'm talking about like full featured sets, not just like
secret layers.
Secret layers.
Oh, okay.
But next year, the two main things that they're changing is that they are releasing now 3 universes beyond. So that's where they bring in other people's IP.
Yeah.
And they are now almost referring to their own brand as like a sub
universe.
brand within. Yes, they're like, you're going to get 3 Magic the Gathering universe releases, and then 3 universe beyond. You're getting Final Fantasy.
Yep.
You're getting an unannounced one, and then I'm having a brain fart about what the third one is. But the other thing that they are saying is that now the universes beyond, these kind of crazy, funny, are going to be legal in all sets, including standard.
Oh my God, really? Even standard?
You could play SpongeBob in standard?
So I could have SpongeBob and Transformers and The Witcher.
I'm gonna equip Optimus Prime with Sephiroth's Mass Immune or with the Cloudbuster sword. That is going to be a thing. And so it's
damn.
And so it's becoming like it's almost like becoming a parody of itself, right? Where now, like it's like a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox. It's like how long until it's like, well, Final Fantasy puts Magic the Gathering characters into it, and then it's like everybody is just, no one wants actually good storytelling. They just want like, I know that thing. That's a nerd thing. Oh, I love it. Make it into a Funko Pop. Like that's like right, like a great example of that is Funko Pops. Funko Pop does not have an identity. It is just other people's IPs.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a collection of brands.
Yes.
And so the idea, in my mind, that is where we are headed in pretty much all things.
You're right. Everything is derivative of everything else.
Yeah, and it basically goes like, look, if we pack the shotgun of this product with enough BBs, we'll hit something of your nerd heart, and you'll be able to go, I can relate to that. I like that thing, And so,
which makes the Terrifier so interesting because it's a new IP with Art the Clown as the bad guy. And boy, let me tell you, tomorrow during Halloween, you're going to be seeing Art the Clown everywhere. And this guy didn't even exist a few years ago. And he was all over Spirit Halloween. You'll see him. He's the black and white.
Art the Clown?
Look up Art the Clown. He's the bad guy from Terrifier.
He's from the Terrifier.
Yeah, he's the new Terrifier. And
so it's basically Pennywise.
No. He would terrify Pennywise. This guy
I'm just saying, Pennywise did eat children.
No. This guy is much worse. He actually is interesting. He was just a normal clown, and he actually dies, and then...
Are any clowns really normal?
Yes. And then,
he was a normal clown. Average clown.
He was a normal average clown serial killer who killed people. He was killed, but then a demon brought him back to life, and now he's basically indestructible. Yes, if you did not watch the first, I'm really into the lore of these things. It's very, it's because this is what makes horror movies so good. The good ones, that they have good lore, and they have good stories for their bad guys. Okay, that's what makes it. Okay, anyhow, what I was getting at, and that's fascinating because everything is derivative. Because they were, one of the big things they were talking about of the new DMG Dungeon Master Guides. They're like, oh, we have Greyhawk in there. We got Greyhawk in there, and it's like.
Oh, I looked it up because so next year there's 3 Magic the Gathering universes releases, and then there's 3 one has not been released. One is Final Fantasy, one is Marvel Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man.
See?
Oh, God. I know, but it's so insane. Like, everything is so derivative, and even Stranger Things. Like, I wait till next year. Like, you just wait, because next year is the last year for Stranger Things. Season 5, it's the final year. They are gonna, oh my God, there's gonna be Stranger Things everything.
Right.
Everything. It's gonna be Stranger Things.
But I mean, generally speaking, I mean, that's just become the thing about it. Like, you don't need, to your point about why they don't need fans. Well, they don't need fans. They just need consumers.
Exactly. And that's what I'm getting at, is that
they need users,
right,
or fans by the sense of.
Well, they don't even care if they use Mark. They don't care if they use it.
I get that fair.
Buy
They need buyers.
they want consume.
Yeah, they want buyers.
Consume
they want consumers.
Product.
Consume.
That's it. Yeah.
Right?
Fans in the sense that, like, you might call the person who sits in the baseball seat in the stadium a baseball fan, but not fans in the sense of the person who, like, that is everything and they're deeply into it. Is that where you guys are getting at with fans?
No, what I mean is, if I'm Major League Baseball, and I hate to use the baseball analogies, right?
Sure.
So there's that person who goes, they don't have season tickets, but they go to a lot of games. They get cheap seats in the bleachers, right? They get a program, they keep box score, they know the players, they know the pitching changes, right? There's that fan of baseball, of that team. And then there's the fan who buys club seats, right? Who buys season tickets, who goes and buys 5 jerseys a year. Every time a new player joins the team, they buy a new jersey, official merch, right? And they're buying, they're buying expensive drinks at the bar. Who does that baseball team want in their stadium? They want that person. They want the second person. They want the person who's spending a lot of money.
But isn't that person also a fan?
No,
that's why.
Mark, if you go to a baseball game, it is frightening how few people there actually give a shit about what is happening in the baseball game.
But the person who goes and gets the club seats and buys all of those jerseys are not a fan. What are they? What are they?
I don't know. It's
present
everywhere nowadays.
They are they're called
wait.
There's a name. They're bandwagons. They're bandwagoners is what the term is.
Wait, are they really only bandwagoners?
Yes.
If they buy all that stuff and do
yes.
all
a lot of them are. A lot of them
are.
Are they
not a true fan?
It's performative consumerism.
Yes.
It's a way of of demonstrating that you're an interesting, cool person. It's whales is probably another option for it as well. But it's just
I can see whale.
There are so many people who you go, it's like, you're a D&D player, and they're like, yeah, and they're like, oh, like, how many campaigns are you in? And they're like, well, I played it only a couple of times, but look at all these Funko Pops, and look at all these like plushies that I have, right? And people go, oh, okay, like, so what's going on there? And as a business, right, there's some diehard awesome group and an awesome GM, and they bought the player's handbook a couple of times and one DMG and one monster manual, and they've been running games week in, week out for 5 years, and they've never bought another damn thing, and they don't subscribe to D&D Beyond, and they play in their basement on a erasable dry erase board. And you know what? Wizards of the Coast doesn't need or want that person.
Okay, so I now think I understand the title of the episode and the dumb better. I would say that those whales are also fans, but it is more of they want to have whales and consumers over just having fans.
I guess. But I just think that, someone spending an extravagant amount of money on a hobby or a sport or an entertainment does not make them a fan. It may seem counterintuitive, but it is very true. In fact, I would argue frequently at baseball stadiums, the people with the best seats are usually not the best fans.
Fair enough. Like, you could talk about the quality of who's the better fan and who's the truer fan or not, but I would say that they're both fans. But that's now we're getting to a point of defining terms, and
sure.
I will readily admit that when you don't have a shared definition for what a word is, you can get into lots of arguments where you basically agree on everything else. And I think I agree with a lot of what Stephen and you were saying, other than that I think that those people are fans.
Well, now we're talking, so now we're getting into, I mean, these are real advanced topics, but we're getting into what, I forgot the terms for these, but they're basically identification markers where people identify themselves as part of a fandom or a type of fandom or part of a product, even if they don't even use the product, but they just kind of liked it once. And you'll see that a lot, obviously anime people, and you'll see that pretty often at science fiction, fantasy comic book conventions. is that they identify themselves with the concept of a brand. You know who used to, the original ones, they were like the punks. Do you remember the punk movement like in the 70s? And
I was a little young for that.
You're a little too young, but the whole point of the punk movement was a lifestyle. Like if you watch back in the 70s or watch any of that stuff, especially from the British side, not the American side, it's like punk was this lifestyle, or like the hippie, you know, it was like, oh, it was a lifestyle brand of living like a hippie. The difference between the 60s and the 70s of the punk brand is that that was a way of life. Nowadays, consumerism has gotten so good is that, oh, do you want to be a punk? Well, here's your punk merchandise that we can sell to you, and you can be a punk in your spare time. You don't actually have to live the lifestyle and be a punk and cut your hair like that. But if you want to kind of rebel after something, here's the rebellion section. Right. And here's all the different ways, like whatever style of life you want, you can become. I think that's what you're describing, is that those people who buy the jerseys, is that like, are they baseball fans? Not really. But do they like going to the game and hanging out with their friends and eating hot dogs and drinking beer and wearing jerseys? Yes. But do they like baseball? No.
No, I don't know about New York. But I know, I mean, when I go to a Guardians game, I mean, that's most people. They're just there to hang out and have a good time. Yeah. You know, and La Fantasma had a nice quote. They said they want to buy their identity rather than live it.
Exactly.
And to be fair, I don't necessarily know that there's anything intrinsically wrong about that. I'm not trying to, poo-poo people who want to buy that identity. But all I'm saying is that if you're a company and you're there to make money, okay, then you're going to focus on what sells and creates consumers, not what creates fans.
I agree with you on that, Derek. But I don't think that there's anything worse or better about different kinds of fans, and I think everybody can be a fan in their own way. And those people who are whales are fans. The people who are like, I'm proud that I've never given a cent to this company that play Pathfinder 2 on Nethys, and or even they want to kind of brag about how they managed to do it without paying. Those are fans. Sure. The people who go on the message boards or Reddit and complained about a game for like so many words that they could have written War and Peace when you calculate it out, those are also fans. And I don't want to say any of those fans are better or worse than the others, but Derek, you're 100% right that the company wants the ones that are spending the money.
Yeah, and the only thing I will add to that is the difference is, in my general experience, is the way that you appeal to fans, right, is sort of kind of vertical integration, right? You make the game better. You double down into the game. You explore that space, or you explore that sport. How do we make this the best version of itself? The way you appeal to consumers is horizontal, right? You have more product offerings. You have this spinoff, this spinoff, this spinoff, this brand, and you give them this huge smorgasbord of different options. The concept of truly leaning into what the game's or the concept's core identity is sort of forgotten in a way of increasing the buffet of options.
Well, thank God I had you on, Derek, because you basically just summed up what I was about to say, which is this is what hurts the brand, which is going to hurt Magic and is going to hurt Dungeons and Dragons and all geekdom. Okay, I'm just using D&D as a placeholder, is that this has already happened to Star Wars. It's happening to Marvel. I mean, it definitely happened to Star Wars. Is that you're exactly right. Is that you have a limited amount of resources. So you can either vertically, you work vertically and increase the level of complexity and the depth and the fun factor of the brand itself, or you can go wide and just make everything kind of the same, but now with Spider-Man. Like, oh, we have a fireball? Well, for Spider-Man, we're going to call the exact same spell, like, whatever. Red ball, web sling, but it's the same freaking spell. It's like, Did you come up with something new? No, you're just iterating on what exists.
So, Steven, have you looked at those sets I'm guessing Derek has. Are they just web ball, or do they try to incorporate some clever mechanics that fit with
come out
the
with new
theme
stuff
of the?
Oh, I'm not trying to say that they don't still have ways. Although I will add that we're specific to Magic the Gathering, there is a lot of Magic the Gathering Secret Lairs releases where they have a card and it's an existing card. They even put that title on there, and then they give it like an alternate title. Like, for example, they're releasing a Captain America Secret Lair, and he has a shield of War and Peace, and it's mechanically the exact same thing as the Sword of War and Peace. And in fact, even on the card, it says in like little letters, Sword of War and Peace. But they've reframed it as the Shield of War and Peace with a alternate art and all this other stuff.
So would that mean that if you're playing in a format where you can have 4 of a kind, it counts as the sword, and you can't have more?
It does count as the sword.
Yeah, so you can't have that's why they do that. It
is strictly a. Mechanically, it is literally the same thing, and it is just
it's like
they reskin it.
It's a reskin. They're selling skins. They're selling skins.
So the reskin is a good example of going horizontal and just putting out more things. Whereas I think that, like, you know what? SpongeBob SquarePants is not the first thing I would have thought of to be in a Magic the Gathering game. But if they come up with cool mechanics that really make you think, this fits really with what I know from the world of SpongeBob, then, like, to me, power to them on that. But if it's just going to be like, well, it's all the same cards and we put it in small text and we just put SpongeBob at the top, I feel like that's more of a like collector grab.
All right, but
that may be my personal opinion.
What if SpongeBob was in D&D?
I think some people would love that. You could get a certain demographic of people interested in tabletop role-playing games who might have never played it before.
So by that definition, we should be doing that. So we should have Sabrina Carpenter D&D. We should have Taylor Swift D&D. It should be like the monopolization, right, of D&D, right? There should just be a D&D for every Taylor Swift D&D, right? Each class or is named after one of her hit albums.
Could you do a Taylor Swift like D&D role-playing game, which is kind of like Hannah Montana style, where you live a double life between being like Taylor Swift type.
That's called the vigilante. It's the vigilante class.
Or magic user by night.
It's the vigilante class. They just reskin it to Taylor Swift.
There's someone at Wizards of the Coast right now who's having a heart attack because they are just envisioning Taylor Swift sitting down with Matt Mercer to play D&D, and how that would literally turn D&D into $1 billion brand overnight.
But that's
if there was the D&D Player's Handbook Taylor's version, it would
the Taylor's
because handbook. This is why it's important. And people are saying, why is this bad? Why is this bad? Because what will happen is they're coming out with these products not necessarily to innovate, but just to consume. So they're saying, oh, we'll come out with a version of D&D. Swiftie is a good example. And it's Taylor Swift branded. And half of it's reskinned from existing D&D. And yeah, maybe some stuff is new.
The rest is just like clever like Easter eggs to Swifties, right? Where you're like, oh, if you're a real fan, you'll know that this is the name from her second album.
The Swifties then...
And you use swiftness instead of initiative, for example.
And then what happens is all these people buy it to consume. They buy it, they put it on their shelf, and they never look at it. They never use it. They never open it.
Like the themed monopolies?
Yes, exactly. Exactly, 100% right.
That might be the example of Hasbro figuring this out, and then they decided to use in their other brands.
I think if you ask the average American family, they'll be like, they have 2.3 copies of Monopoly in
their
house.
It's actually, I know the number. 50% of all American households have a Monopoly set in their house.
How many play it? Derek is saying
0.
the average may be higher than 1.
Well, now it's over 50 because this is what happened. So you know where that came from is that I've said this before on the show. Is that 50%? They figured it out that 50% of all American households have Monopoly, and so how do they sell more Monopoly? And I don't know who figured it out, but someone figured out branding. And not only do people have Monopoly and more than one, there's Clue branding. There is what was it? Trivial Pursuit branding.
Right, which is crazy because now it's a board game branded as another board game.
Yeah.
Right? And like what would be the ultimate inception would be like if you had Monopoly, and then you had Trivial Pursuit themed Monopoly, and then you had Lord of the Rings Trivial Pursuit themed Monopoly. Right, so it's not Lord of the Rings.
What if you had Lord of the Rings Trivial Pursuit Monopoly themed Clue?
Right. Yeah,
right. There is Clue. I actually have the Simpsons Clue, by the way, somewhere here.
Right.
I'm proud to have 0 copies of Monopoly in my household, but I
don't have any Monopoly,
like 4
but I have
5
Clue.
Sets of Spirit Island.
Do you have Harry Potter Monopoly? No, I have Lego Harry Potter Monopoly.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. That is right. But this is the thing, is that's exactly what's happening, is that, and this happens all the time. You know where this is happening that really drives me crazy? Is Broadway shows. Because Broadway shows were getting so expensive to make that a lot of the Broadway shows, thankfully it hasn't completely taken over, are just remakes of existing properties because they can't take a risk. You know, they just came out with Death Becomes Her as a Broadway show. And I'm actually kind of fascinated. I'm like, hey, that one might work. But you know what came out as a Broadway show? Which, by the way, flopped hard and was excellent, was Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day was a Broadway show. It did not last very long. It actually was really good. But if you look at the Broadway shows, they're all remakes. They're all remakes of existing IPs. They don't come out. I mean, there's still about half of them are new. But they just can't risk it anymore because things are too expensive.
Exactly. Capitalism at this point is not rewarding innovation, right? It's awarding the safe and reasonable path.
Rewarding iteration.
Iteration. Yeah. Not innovation, iteration. That's a great, great quote, Mark.
This comes down to, what does this mean for D&D? Is that
the end?
It is. I believe it. No, seriously. It's like the more I've been looking at now, the DMG is out. And seeing how they just fired a whole bunch of people. They're reorganizing. Hasbro's doing this whole big reorganization.
Who else did they fire from D&D?
They fired 4 people that we know of, but they fired 100 people from Hasbro in the last 2 weeks. But I'm going to tell you something fascinating. So I have all the Q3 earnings, but I'm going to read out one specific sentence that was said during the. I'm not even going to bother with everything else because. Long story short is they lost money, and the only reason they even made money is because they fired so many people. And if they didn't fire so many people, it would have been a freaking bloodbath.
No, but it sounded like they made a lot of money.
No, they said top line revenue was down, but bottom line revenue was up.
Yeah, and the only reason it was up is because they fired so many people, and that's the only reason they made money.
Right. So for people who don't know, but top line revenue is basically how much did you sell? That was down. Yeah. Bottom line revenue is how much of that you sold did you basically get to keep?
Yeah.
And so that's where like your expenses.
So sales are down. Sales are down.
So sales are down.
They had year-to-date operating profits of $630 million during the quarterly earnings report, with a $98 million dividend payout to shareholders.
Yeah, but here we go. Are you ready?
So how do they get $630 million
they cut costs.
Operating profits
they cut
just
costs.
from firing that many people?
They cut costs.
Well, no. I think it's more that the drop in sales was not necessarily commensurate with the drop in bottom line revenue.
Well, keep in mind,
because like Steven said, they cut costs.
They cut costs. Right. They also have things like they wrote off inventory. I mean, I don't want to get into it. It can get very complex.
Remember, by the way, at this point, it doesn't even matter if a company makes money. It's did they meet target earnings, right? Like that's all that matters.
Here we go. For D&D, I'm going to read this exactly as it says. I'm going to go a little closer. You might be out of frame. For D&D, the updated Player's Handbook for 5th edition is now our fastest selling product in D&D's 50-year history, beating plan by over 50%. And our acquisition of D&D Beyond continues to pay off, driving D&D's total mix of direct-to-consumer revenue from 0 at the time of acquisition to 60% today, with registered users more than doubling to $19 million.
Okay, so they get 60% of all of their sales now are direct to consumer, either from D&D Beyond or from their own ability to sell it.
2 years ago, it was 0.
It was 0.
2 years ago. Not 20, not 5, 2.
Steven, that quote of yours just solved like 6 of your videos.
I know.
Where did those sales go?
Yep.
It went to 60% there.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to say. So 2 years ago, when they bought D&D Beyond, it had less than 9 million or less subscribers, and 0% of their sales, Hasbro and WoTC, was direct to consumer. And you want direct to consumer because you get almost 100% profit.
Right.
As of now, it's 60%, and this is just D&D. This is not Magic. This is exact quote.
Just D&D, 60% direct to consumer.
Direct to consumer,
Well,
and they have 19
profits,
million
right?
users on D&D Beyond now.
And it was 50% higher overall, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right. So,
that's huge.
So that means that by any stretch of the imagination, D&D 2024 was a massive success.
For them making money, yes. It was a huge success because even if they sold the same number or even half, because they keep, before when you were selling books, I've gone through this many times, you keep like 30, 35%. After you do printing and shipping and all those sales, you're making a couple of dollars per book. Now, they sell something on D&D Beyond for $30. They're keeping $29.80, after like
and
fees.
even the hardcovers that they sell direct, they're keeping a higher percent.
Exactly.
Right.
They keep everything. I mean, they're making it's almost pure profit.
Well, I guess this is me being coy and cynical, but like what happened to all the people who are like, I will never buy from Wizards of the Coast again?
Those are the same people who said they were never going to buy the Harry Potter video game last year, and then it was the best-selling video game last year.
Okay,
which was the Harry Potter video game.
I think a lot of the people who say that they're not going to buy something don't buy it. But that doesn't mean that other people won't buy it, though. That's the thing. The number of voices you heard saying, I will never buy this, are loud, and they may be active in YouTube. They may be active online. But in terms of like the wider world of consumers out there, it's a drop in the bucket, and other people bought it.
So then is it fair to say that whether it was a result of accidents or plans, Wizards of the Coast has essentially done a mix shift where they have essentially removed what I will call like sort of the vocal minority of fans who weren't buying anything anyways, and replaced them with shills who are buying everything.
Yep. And that comes down to the crux of that.
I mean,
they're just
going to get people who buy everything are necessarily shills.
No. But they're basically, they got rid of Dixon, and they're like, you know what? We don't need them anymore. You know what? We don't even need the YouTubers. Look at how successful we are. We're just going to market online direct to consumer and do Google ads, do Facebook ads, do our own in-person, we're going to do closed session seminars. And we learned from OGL and all these fiascos. Everything's in-house. We're circling the wagons. That's that. And that's it. And now you're not going to hear from, I don't think you're going to ever see preview copies going out unless they're to people that are more or less guaranteeing them to give them good press. Which is, I don't even know if they need to bother anymore, because when you have 19, 20, 30, 50 million people, instead what they're going to do is, well, we can either give these books and talk about it with every single YouTuber on planet Earth, or we can do Stranger Things with Netflix. I'm like, what's going to make you more money? It's a no-brainer. I mean, it's like, or we do a co-brand with Coke or Pepsi or McDonald's. Like, what Derek is saying, I wouldn't be surprised. Derek, I just sent Derek. I love, so those of you who don't know, I basically, in my spare time, always find the worst co-brands and send them to Derek, and then he always says he wants to kill himself or he hates me. Yesterday I sent you the meat stick co-brand of
D&D officially licensed meat sticks. That's what we need.
Everything's co-branding, baby. But that's where the money's at. And that's why they don't need fans. They don't even need fans. They want consumers, and they want co-branded products, and that's it. And that's why they're reorganizing, and that's why they're bringing everyone in-house, because they're like, We'll make more money this way. You know,
Sure.
the days of fans, the days of fandom, the days of trying to reach people, it's too small. It's way too small. And you know what's also fast?
Is it not reaching people by going wide and making these SpongeBob products? Isn't that a type of outreach?
It
that
is, but it's
reaching
completely
people? And
controlled. That's the difference.
it's controlled, but it's reaching.
No, you're right.
Getting rid of organic reach for a very controlled and specific.
It's getting rid of not
kind
just
of reach.
organic reach, but it's no longer going after the core audiences anymore. It's going after the broadest, most, you know, diverse and easiest audience to get. Like, how do I say this without getting in trouble? Okay. I know for a fact, if you look at I know my sales, and my sales are vastly more male than female. Okay, they just are. If you also look in Magic, it's vastly more male than female. And you can back this up. If you go to YouTube channels that are specialized, you can actually see their demographics and you can see where they're at.
Certain types of sales have different demographics. There are also, like, for instance, types of games that are vastly more women than men.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm just saying, it goes both ways. It goes both ways.
There's a lot of money to be made in all sorts of things that have
Correct.
skewed demographics and ones that have even demographics.
And one, if anyone remembers, remember the Wii U? How the Wii U, when it first came out, it became such a massive hit. Sorry, not the Wii U, the Wii. When the Wii came out, it was like, that's all people were talking about. It's because I forgot his name, but the director of Nintendo said, wait a second, why are we only selling to men? It's like, let's figure out how to sell to everyone. And then he came out with like Wii Fitness. He came out with Pikmin. He came out with all these. They weren't necessarily products that appealed to women, but they were products that
anyone would like.
Anyone would like. Exactly. They were neutral.
Highly popular.
They were neutral products. They were neutral. And oh boy, that actually transformed the industry. And now everyone's doing that. And that's actually a lot of what you see. People like, I don't want to get into the whole woke thing, but if you notice D&D, it's like it's becoming a lot more homogenized because they want to appeal to everyone. And some people really don't like that. I mean,
those people are neckbeard fucks.
Yeah, I think
I completely agree.
I
don't care.
We don't
personally
have to cater to the people who don't want to include. I think
right.
It is a good thing to include more people.
Yeah,
I agree. No, but you see what you know what I'm getting at.
All I'm saying, like, for example, like, you know, like, do I care if they, you know, like, I'll give you a great example. Magic the Gathering. This really started in Theros. So 2014. Theros, as to my knowledge, was the first Magic the Gathering set that like actively included a same-sex couple.
I love that set, by the way.
It was a fantastic
was a great set.
But it's the two heroes of Acroas or whatever like that. They founded the city together or whatever. One of those two. Anyways, or maybe it was Afara or whatever. I don't know. But anyways, point is, you know, cool art, cool cards, but it didn't like dilute the brand. These were Magic the Gathering characters in a Magic the Gathering world, and it felt totally fine. Like that was awesome. Like, and I loved to see it. I was happy to see it. I was excited to see it. But when you put, you know, Cloud and Tifa and Lightning on a Magic the Gathering card, and you give it these Final Fantasy theme mechanics, now suddenly that is not just, oh, but it's expanding the reach of the game. Yeah, but that's being done in a very different way. It's being done in a very different, like, it's not, you could say that you could argue that's inclusion, but it's not. You know, like that is just brand marketing and just trying to just tap into consumerism.
They're different kinds of outreach.
Yeah. I mean, it's subtle. I know what Derek's getting at. It's a very subtle difference between. It's like I don't even know how you would explain.
No,
it.
but like one of them is trying to accept more people into your community who, especially those who may have been traditionally excluded, and the other one is more of accepting another brand into your brand to try to get the consumers who are into that other brand to latch onto your brand as well. And there's a big difference between like combining and attaching brands together as opposed to like showing different ways of life and showing people that they can be accepted for who they are in your brand without like attaching another brand onto it. I can see what Derek's point is there. Is that right, Derek? Roughly?
Yes, roughly. Yeah.
So, with that all being said, and we see the direction they're going. So, Magic the Gathering is already a billion-dollar brand. And they're realizing, okay, we hit a wall. We've grown about as big as we can get going vertical, so we have to go wide. So that's when they started to do the Lord of the Rings set, which, by the way, was their best-selling set of all time.
Yeah.
By far. And they're like, everyone, as many people who can say, oh, I don't like this. I hate this. This is so terrible. Meanwhile, ka-ching, they're making all this money. Like, you can play it all you want, but we're never going to stop. We're going to accelerate it.
10 Bones says, I call BS. You guys are dancing around it. Obviously, don't pretend this didn't dilute the brand. So you're trying to say that the brand of D&D is essentially an essential component of the brand of D&D is racism and non-inclusionarianism? Is that what you're saying? Like, that seems crazy.
Gary Gygax might, if you read his stuff from
Gary
the 70s,
Gygax had some pretty
would have
nasty
said yes.
stuff that he's written in some of his letters.
Oh,
but
he would have said yes.
I think that almost no one, including even including some people, like I found it interesting to me based on Gary's letters, which we can all see. They're in some of the D&D history books that even one of the ones WoTC put out acknowledged it. What I found actually interesting is like when Kelsey personally met Gary and he was very the stuff that he said to her was very different. I wonder if Gary may have changed his mind from his own extremely very extreme opinions that he wrote in those letters. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know what he would have said, but I don't think anyone at D&D him had that same opinion, right?
It isn't. I know it's crazy to imagine that a boomer could do this, but it's not crazy to think that Gary Gygax may have held fairly misogynistic or racist, not necessarily like deeply held, but like had a general tone of misogynism and racism in the 70s, and that by the 80s and into the 90s and into the early 2000s when he met someone like Kelsey Dion, maybe he had changed his mind and become more open.
I think he did.
That's what I was suggesting there. Yeah. I think maybe he had changed his mind. So because people,
it was very nice.
Stephen
to Kelsey.
Was saying maybe Gary would have said yes. I think maybe he changed his mind later. I don't know. I don't know him well enough. I only know a few data points from talking to people who talked to him and from his letters and his own writings. But I agree, Derek. That's very possible.
Yeah. I mean, oh boy, if you want to talk about, they always say it's a different time. It's a different time. But man, yesterday I turned on. Oh God, I can't believe it. Has anyone seen the movie Blame It on Rio? You guys know. Okay. If you want to talk about the most, like, people always say that didn't age well. This is a movie, I think it's from 1982. It is the literal definition of that did not age well. And it is basically about two fathers who go to Rio with their kids who are like 18. And then one of the fathers has an affair with the daughter of the other guy who's only 18, and they try to hide it the whole movie.
Was that something that would have worked even in 1984?
In 82, it was a big movie. In 1982, Blame It on Rio was a big hit. And it was odd. I just was watching it, and I was like, wow, it's this movie. It is like, holy crap. I was curious. I was too young to know what the reaction was. It was actually one of Demi Moore's first movies, and she was really young. She was like 19 or 20 in that movie. It is crazy, man. But there's a lot of things from the 70s and 80s, and even the 90s, and heck, even the early 2000s. I was watching the Drew Carey show last night, which is from the 90s, and there was a couple things in there. I was like, eek. Or you know what? I'll even go back 10 years ago. How I Met Your Mother. That show has aged terribly, and it shows like not even 10 years old, and that show is like unwatchable now. So let's see. Scott gave us a super chat. He says, your argument holds no water. It's not like WoTC stopped making the game you love and play. Spider-Man skin magic cards doesn't hurt your deck.
Awesome.
Okay.
Right, but that Spider-Man release, instead of being a magic, a creative magic endeavor of cool new mechanics and a magic branded IP, something new, something innovative, something creative, isn't that? It's instead a Spider-Man release.
Yeah,
So,
actually, this is what my argument is that you only get to release, say, 10 products a year. And that's it. That's all. I'm just using an arbitrary number, but there's a limited number of slots and a limited amount of talent and items that can be released a year. So you can either release 10 new magic items that explore new worlds and new mechanics and new themes, or you can release 4 Spider-Man decks, 4 SpongeBob decks, and 2 new magic sets this year. So it does dilute your brand.
Well, but here's my question, and I do not know the answer to this, so you two can help me with this. Does it necessarily, if you guys are saying they're putting out more than ever before, if the fact that you have SpongeBob and that raises your projected earnings enough to hire more people so that you can do the extra SpongeBob, if that pays for itself, does it necessarily take away from other things if it just increases your product line with a higher horizontal breadth?
Not if you're not adding to the core brand. Like, I see
Do
what
we
you're
know
saying.
that they're not going to add to the core brand?
They can't because Magic is a physical release, and right now the stores have been saying that they are just they're getting inundated by too much, that they can't just keep adding. There's basically a new release every week, okay? They went from a couple releases a year to 1 a week. They can't go to 2 a week. It's like there's a limited amount of physical space inventory in these actual store shelves, and because Magic is still mostly played, not mostly, but it's still played in a physical space, then there is physical limits to how much can be released, at least in the world of Magic. So unless they start to release some of these online exclusive, then yes, there is a limit to how much can be released per year, specifically to Magic. Now you have something.
The game stores won't let them.
Yeah, the game stores can only buy. The game stores have a limited amount of budget too. So if they say, okay, we can buy 10,000, I'm just making up a number, $10,000 worth of Magic sets per year. That's it. Whether it's 5 sets or 500 sets, that's all we can buy. And so they have to decide like what they're buying, and then because it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle, because, the Lord of the Rings set sold the best, so we're putting all of our money in Lord of the Rings. And then the new set comes out, which is a Magic branded set, and it sells poorly because no one had money to buy it and it wasn't selling. And it's like, you see? Then WoTC goes back and says, you see? When we release something that doesn't have a co-brand, it does terribly. It's like, no, because the freaking co-brand sucked all the oxygen out of the room and everyone bought that instead. So you're literally strangulating and killing your own brand.
But it's also the paradox, because that's what the people want.
I know. That's the craziest part. It's right. It's the paradox of who wants original IP and who wants rebrands and co-brands.
Who's the game designer who said, like, given an opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of any game they play or whatever?
I've heard that quote.
That might have been even Garfield who might have been.
I don't know, but
that.
It's the same. Right, it's the same idea. It's like by chasing after the things that you love, you are sort of trapping yourself in a cycle of mediocrity, of where Spider-Man shows up in Magic, and then Magic shows up in, I don't know, Star Wars, and then Star Wars shows up in Lego, and Lego shows up in Lord of the Rings. Like it's just an endless cycle.
Well, the thing is, this is going to happen to D&D, but there is a savior and there's something good. The nice thing about this is just that there's a lot of other games out there. But if this happens to D&D, and we already have, we're going to start, I guarantee, I'm curious to see how they co-brand with Stranger Things. They didn't announce anything, which I'm a little surprised, because you would think they would. They would announce like co-brands with Stranger Things directly, not just indirectly. But one of the other things they talked about a lot in their quarterly earnings is one of the reasons they're doing this reorganization is for speed. Because I know for an absolute fact that it takes, well, Magic we know, like Magic's very open. It takes about 2 to 3 years. They basically work on decks 2 to 3 years ahead of time before they're released. And I know D&D does the same thing, I know just talking to people who work there, and I know their production schedule is that they work on things years ahead of time. The problem with working things so far ahead of time is that they do miss trends, and they do miss, being so agile, especially when they're printing things. However, if you are suddenly, that's actually one of the other reasons why people like AI so much, and no one talks about this, but if something suddenly is very hot, and they decided, hey, you know what? We can come out with a D&D card set in the next 6 months, and we need to come out with the cards, and we need to come out with the art, and we need to get into D&D, Magic the Gathering, get into Arena. Yeah, we might not have time to print out the cards, but we can get into Arena really quickly. Let's just do that. And because if we tried to hire people to actually do the art, it'll take too long. If we tried to hire people to write up all the cards, it'll take too long. But AI art, we can have AI art finish the art in a week, and then we can go through it in a month and clean it up. And we can have the cards ready in a few weeks, and then we can go through and clean them up in a month, and then have it programmed, and boom, bang, boom, it's released in 3 months.
Yeah.
Did Maybe. I just blow your mind, Derek?
No, it's just, I don't know.
I know, it's horrible.
I don't know if I'm that cynical yet.
I'm going to tell you why I'm that cynical. You want to know why?
Why? Why, Steven? Why are you that cynical? You're more cynical than Derek right now.
That's saying something, right?
You want to know why? It goes back to baseball. Are you ready?
Okay. Everything does, so let's hear it.
Okay. So.
Is a baseball game a heist?
It is. Let me explain to you. It actually goes back 10 years to Linsanity. Okay? So, do you remember, does anyone know what Linsanity is? No, you don't. So I'm going to tell you. No. So there was this guy, Lynn, who played for the Knicks. And he was Asian born. He was a basketball player. He was like kind of a nobody. He played for the Knicks, and he had a couple of amazing games. And suddenly in New York, which is, one of the biggest basketball markets in the world, and everyone, and I mean everyone on planet Earth wanted Lynn merchandise, but you couldn't get it because he was a nobody. So there was no Lynn merchandise to be found. So they managed to print up the jerseys. They printed everything up. They got into the stores. They printed up tens of millions of dollars of jerseys and merchandise. By the time it went into the stores, he was injured. I think he was traded. Like, he wasn't even playing anymore. And all that merchandise was being sold for $1. And they missed out. They totally missed out. So this company called, I think it's a Fandom or Fangraphics, they figured out a way that they can get any piece of merchandise for any player in any sport from the day you order it to your door in 3 days. 3 days, anyone. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter what team they're on, they can get it to you in 3 days. And this has revolutionized the sports industry. So now they have all these different jerseys, because they used to only sell the jerseys of the most popular players. You can go onto the website now and order any jersey for any player at any sport, and it will show up in your door in 3 days. Doesn't matter who they are, because they have figured out the technology. Now, is the quality kind of crap? Yeah, of course the quality is garbage in comparison. But this is the problem, is that they were awarded the contract for Major League Baseball's uniforms this year. And they used the same crappy technology to make the league uniforms that they were making, for everyone. And oh boy, the complaints by the Major League Baseball players this year was endless, because they were like, this is garbage. Like, this stuff is garbage compared to what we used to have. And actually the same thing happened in basketball, and the basketball jerseys were tearing, they were ripping, everything was garbage. But it was able to get the orders to the fans quickly and efficiently, even though it was completely garbage.
Right.
Which brings me back to right now, it takes years for these products to come to market. But if we could figure out a way to make these products very quick, and they've mentioned it many times that Chris Cox says, oh boy, can't wait to use AI because we have a ton of content that we can mine. He's used that exact word to make D&D adventures. It's like, what do you think's going to be happening? And you better believe it's going to happen to Magic the Gathering. They're going to start making dynamic Magic the Gathering cards, magic art, everything.
Smurf took the words out of my mouth. Time, money, quality, you only get to pick two. And there was a time and a place where quality mattered, but for most people, it doesn't matter as much anymore. Give me the option that's cheapest and can get here with not even 2-day Prime, same day Prime. Honestly, I'm not even kidding you. You go to a site and you're like, I really want to get this, this thing. And you're like, okay, I can order it from the website, direct from the manufacturer, American made, it's handmade by craftsmen. And, then there's a shipping cost of $7.95 and it'll be here in 5 to 7 business days. Or you go and you look at Amazon and it's half the price and it could be there tomorrow. Yep. What are most people going to pick? Well, Jeff Bezos will tell you they're picking Amazon.
Well, exactly.
Maybe he won't tell you because he has to leave it in suspense.
Right.
Well, what's fascinating about this is that if you read the whole quarterly report, they mention specifically that they're doing this reorganization to get faster. And when I hear get faster, I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. Everything's gonna go digital because you can get things done faster digitally. You just can. And obviously they're making all their money digital, but that's not fast enough. They're going to go one step further. They're going to start using generative AI for product, and they can't do it fast enough. Now, it might be a year from now, it might be 5 years or even 10 years, but it's going to happen. Mark my words, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a scary future.
Mm.
Unless AI becomes so good that it's actually better than humans, in which case I for one welcome our new AI overlords.
Well, that's what's going to happen eventually. Eventually it ends up being better because that's what actually does happen. Think about the map directions. Obviously it's got a long way. When it first came out, it was kind of buggy and people were driving in the lakes and stuff. Or way back when you had triptychs from AAA that was done by hand. People would actually sit there and figure it out for you. Now, these things are to the point here's the traffic, here's where there's road closures, and this is the best and fastest way to get there. And it's this is great. This is better.
Right.
But for creative pursuits, you welcome the AI overlords, Derek. Would this be a utopia to you if you could you turn on your TV and all of the shows have been produced by AI, because
that was a Dark Mirror episode.
Ideas, and all the movies are
Black
AI.
Mirror,
all the books were written by AI.
That was a Black Mirror episode where basically the Black Mirror was the inception of it was a Netflix type show where whatever you watched was made for you, so you can watch what you wanted. And it was designed by AI.
Done by AI, so that humans don't have to do creative pursuits anymore. Mm-hmm. We can buckle down and do jobs that require a human being to do.
Well, if we're at that point, and I like to think that at that point we're in a post-singularity world, and we've sort of reached some sort of post-singularity utopia, and we're post-consumerism, and we have the luxury and the freedom to do whatever it is that our hearts desire.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Somehow history doesn't seem like it will give us something that nice, though, Derek.
No, I don't think so. But,
No, but I think, you know what? You couldn't have been more right when you said that we're up to the bread and circuses part of society.
Sure.
Because people are now there's literally nothing to do except entertain ourselves. It's like work and entertain yourselves, and that's it. And people have gone into it used to be that you would go to the movies and you would see a crappy movie, but it was a movie. And if you look at the box office from like 20, 30 years ago, half those movies, you're like, these movies are garbage. But if you wanted to go to a movie, that's what you would watch. That's it. You'd have no choice. You would either see a crappy movie or you would see nothing, right. But now people are getting to the point that I want to see the specific exact item. And if I don't see that, I see nothing because there's 10,000 other things to do.
Well, there's also something to be said. I mean, what we're talking about here, RPGs, TV, movie, right? Mm-hmm. It's all optional. It's fluff, It's entertainment, and I don't know. I don't have the exact statistics, so please feel free to correct me. But there was also something to be said about back in the day saying, well, I'm going to go see this movie. Yeah, it was terrible, but it only cost me $5.
Right.
And, and I'm making however much per hour. Okay. Well, now that same movie proportionally for the average median household income of America has like quadrupled in price, and the wages have not increased. And so now, like, taking your kids to see a movie, it's like, if that's not a showstopper,
that's $100
experience. Yeah, so you're going to feel like you got ripped off. I mean, I get, right, inflation is a thing, but traditionally inflation and wages have sort of more or less risen together, and now they have not. So there's also something to be said that we're paying more than ever for this entertainment, and it is now more mediocre in some ways than ever. So, you're paying more for less.
Well, that's why this is...
And to circle back to what we said before, when Steven is saying there's 10,000 games now, there's 10,000 movies, it's not just the one movie that everyone saw. I think that this has something to do with what the big studios that you were talking about for video games, Steven, are doing now. Because back in the day, if you released a Dragon Age, like, that was the Dragon Age that was released. Everyone was going to play that. And so, like, I feel like I don't have the newest Dragon Age. I played the other ones, right? I feel like all of them had significant flaws and some really great stuff in them that I enjoyed. And were the other ones maybe rated higher because there weren't 10,000 other things? But now that we've reached the world with 10,000 other things, there's always going to be some reviewers who are like, yeah, but I like this other one more so than back in the day where it was like, whoa, this is a blockbuster game. It's got some flaws, but this is the one we have. I'll give it a high review. So maybe people are able to be more nuanced in reviews because there's so many options and comparator points. And that causes the big companies to be like, no matter what we do, no matter how good we try to make it, we're going to get a bunch that are kind of mediocre. How do we handle that?
I don't know, man. I mean, even what you were just saying about the movie prices, like, what happens is that less people go to the movies, so they have to increase the price of the movies because they're losing revenue, which then causes, it becomes this perpetual cycle of, well, we used to have more people go to the movies, but actually, what ends up happening? Movie theaters close, and movie theaters have been closing faster than ever before. Like, there's like so many fewer theaters around now than there were even like 5 years ago. I mean, a lot of it was COVID, but still, it's like they just can't keep up. They just can't. Right. They can't keep up anymore.
I remember as a kid, or not even as a kid, when I was in my, when I got my driver's license in my 20s and my early 20s, I think there was like 5 or 6 bookstores within an easy drive of me, and now there's one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's why everything is. Well,
and by the way, that Barnes and Noble sells a lot more than books.
well, yeah. They actually, that's their whole rebrand, is that they are becoming like a hangout place, not just a bookstore.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's like everything's going digital, everything's going online, everything is becoming wide, everything is becoming co-branded, which is the technical term if you want to sound like you're in the advertising biz. That's what it is.
There we go.
It's called a co-brand.
Lo Rosario said, same with restaurants. So many have closed or are closing.
Restaurants are different though.
Can I go on a soapbox for 1 second?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I know. I can talk about restaurants a long time too. Yeah.
What drives me insane
is
I go to the restaurant.
Oh, I spend. You don't want to
Okay.
know what I spend on restaurants.
And I get there and I am 8th in line behind 7 DoorDash orders. And I'm like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm at your restaurant. I'm going to tip you directly. Like, why am I being relegated to second class citizens? And it's because the DoorDash people are much more likely to leave a 1-star review and cause all sorts of problems and whatever. And then I'm like, and you're paying a fee for these it's like, it's crazy to me. And like, I get irritated. Like, even if I go to like a sub shop and I'm sitting there and I feel bad for the person working on the other side of the counter. They're sitting there making me a thing, and then they look over and their little thing goes beep, 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 and like spits out another mobile order. And they haven't even finished my sandwich, and another mobile order comes in. And I go, damn you people.
Well, DoorDash is like actually saved restaurants, to be honest. Like that's actually helping, not hurting restaurants, because now suddenly.
Well, Derek didn't say it's making them lose money. He's saying it's
No,
hurting his
right.
experience as a
I know.
restaurant
Yeah.
attender.
Oh,
That's
I know.
why I call it
It's
my soapbox.
you're right. That is becoming. Well, I can go one step further than that. There's a sushi restaurant near me it's very big, and it is by far the most popular sushi restaurant in the area. And they, during COVID, they still took orders. They were closed, but you can still get orders. They didn't open up for years. Like they still stayed closed. Everyone else was open. And I think they were like, you know what? We're making way more money just taking orders and doing DoorDash than to actually have people in our huge restaurant. And eventually they did open up, but I was thinking they might never open up. And you know what? They opened up for the first time ever. I know I'm like way behind in this times here. So Chick-fil-A just came to New York, like in the area, and they opened up 2 next to each other. And I was like, why'd they open up 2? Well, because one of them is only takeout, and that's it. There's no seating. And I was like, oh my God. And so that's how popular, and they're next to each other. It's like, so one of them is the one with seating. And by the way, I walked in, and there's 4 lines from the counter outside to the door and then outside. 4 lines. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I know Chick-fil-A is popular, but this is insanity.
It's crazy. They have like here at least they have like 3 aisles that wrap around it. Like three drive-through lines.
Right. Well, that was, and then next door the drive-through was just as bad. I was like, I guess I'm not getting Chick-fil-A because it's like, because you can't even get it. It's so ridiculous. Where I live, there isn't any, so it's like it's unique around.
There is a Chipotle near us, and I don't really eat Chipotle, but there's a Chipotle near us that it has a drive-through, but it's not a drive-through you can order at. Right. It's only a drive-through for pickup. For DoorDashes, or if you mailed in your order or called in your order or whatever. Apped in your order, I guess. But it's a drive-through, but you can't actually order there. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how often, I wonder how quickly we're going to see that, right? Where everybody just has to use the app, and, like there's no like taking your actual order, exchanging cash, exchanging money. You just come up, they scan your QR code on your app, and then they hand you your bag of food, and then you're just on
going
your way.
back to baseball, because I love to talk baseball. After COVID,
well, you know a lot about it, so you can give us like very informed takes.
You have no idea. I probably know more about baseball than video games, movies, and gaming, TTRPGs combined. Is that a couple years ago after COVID, at least Citi Field, I think most of the stadiums, they all went cashless.
Right.
They're all cashless. There's no cash. And in fact, they have machines everywhere that if you want, you can put in cash and then get a card, a temporary debit card to use. And that's becoming very common. In fact, more places I see is that I'll go to restaurants and they'll say no cash accepted.
Uh-huh.
And not only is it easier for them because, they don't have to worry about it's easier for their books, but they don't have to worry about skimming because do you know how much people steal?
Skimming.
It's exactly insane.
I went downtown this weekend to go see a Monsters hockey season opener, and paid for parking. And my buddy was with me. He's like, "Let me get parking. I got a 20." And he hands me a 20, and we pull up, and they're like, the lady who's like working the thing goes, "No cash." And my buddy goes, "How is that even? How is that thing?" I go, "Because they don't want people stealing it. They don't want people losing it. They just want the money immediately. And they don't want it to get robbed. By somebody comes up. There's a huge person sitting on a wad of cash, and it's crazy. But also, I'm pretty sure doesn't U.S. currency say this is tender for all debts, public and private? Like, aren't you like legally supposed to have to take cash?
Yes and no. It actually, I was looking into that because legally, theoretically, it's illegal for them to not accept cash.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe
was...
there's some loophole in the. If anyone's a lawyer out there, I don't know. I'll ask my lawyer when I talk to him.
I know there's a loophole regarding coins. Like you can't show up to pay like $100 with pennies unless it's like rolled or something like that. But if I go to Best Buy and I want to buy something and I'm going to pay for it with these rolls of quarters and nickels, they are supposed to take that.
If it's not pennies, even if you are buying something like $1,000 with
no, I said it's rolled. It's rolled. It's in like those.
It's rolled. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I heard about that was in that genre of thing was somewhere, I think it was Cirque du Soleil, but I may be wrong that where this is, but that they had things they were selling and they said no change. And so they were selling drinks or something that was like $1.50. So then they'd be, all right, so $2. So someone's like, I want $2. Here's $3. They're like, no, $4. It's like, wait a minute, there is no change, but $1.50 times 2 is 3.
That's
it's
illegal.
not 4.
Yeah, that's
I completely tangent, but whatever. I did see something on Reddit where there was like some store in California and they had a notice which they said, note, all items in this store are like $7,999.
Oh, right. But you get a non-shoplifting
You
discount.
get a non-shoplifting discount when you pay, which means that if anybody steals something, it's technically like grand larceny because it was priced at. And so that way they, can throw the big book at you and actually.
Yeah, I think that's not legal. Because
I don't think it is.
Actual value is not what the sign says, but what is the?
I don't think it would hold.
But
right, I don't think it would hold up in court either. But I did think that was a clever idea to try.
It was funny when I saw that
to dissuade shoplifting. But yeah. Anyways, I don't know. It's crazy. It's messed up world that we live in, and God help us. But RPGs is not immune from the hurricane. It's getting swept up.
Everything is getting swept up.
I for one, D&D is bigger than it's ever been.
I know.
And for the last 10 years, I have not played D&D.
I know.
I mean, it's true. I mean, I got out of D&D at the worst possible time. If I knew my trajectory was going to be, you're going to have a YouTube channel and you're going to talk about RPGs. I would have been like, oh, 5th edition's the best thing of all time. But I didn't, I didn't, we only played it for about 6 months. And then, we were playing Pathfinder and Pathfinder 1, Pathfinder 2, and God knows how many different, indie games and PBTA games and all these other, crazy 13th Age and a million other different games. And it hasn't affected me one iota. So, if I'm blasé about this and if it doesn't seem like I care about it, it's because I kind of don't, It's like, all this horribleness that, like, for every horrible company out there that is selling to consumers, I promise you there's some hardworking small press company that has got a new Kickstarter out or has something on itch.io and it's pay what you want. And it may be exactly the thing that you want and need to play.
Yeah.
Well, the hardest thing is finding those. How would you suggest to someone who wanted to find their perfect
join
indie game on itch.io without having to check 99 other ones first?
Yeah. I mean, I think you need to find a community of people that are like you.
Yeah,
I mean, you can do that on Reddit. Yeah, you could do that on Reddit. I mean, like a lot of people who join Nice Last Call, the Patreon, it's either to yell at me and tell me how stupid I am, but it's mostly because it's a group of people that have sort of self-selected to sort of be interested in the same ideas. And so when one person gets exposed to a new RPG or a new thing, they share it and suddenly, 5 or 10, 20 other people end up, picking it up or looking into it. But I think, Twitter, Reddit, I mean, you could just go to itch.io and browse. You can go to Kickstarter, BackerKit, and just browse. I find games that way all the time. And then a lot of times too, these people nowadays, these small press publishers, they're tweeting about it. They might have a blog. They might even have a YouTube channel. So, I think you just need to be a more informed consumer. You can't just expect people to serve it to you on a golden plate. I mean, there are small, there are YouTube channels, like Dave Thomavore. Myself, I like to think that, we cover a lot of small press games that people might be exposed to otherwise. I get it. My 3-hour streams are a lot to take in for some people, but
especially if they might have to watch 20 of the 3-hour streams before they find the one that resonates with them.
Right. Exactly.
Right. That's the issue. It's just like, I think a lot of people, if you told them, I guarantee that if you watch this 1 3-hour stream, you'll find the perfect game for you, the perfect indie game for you, that more people would do that. But if instead it's like, watch this and see, is that the perfect game for you or not, then it's like, that's a tough ask. Even browsing through giant catalogs that are like a sea of products, dizzying sea of products, to try to hope to see if you find one can be intimidating for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And there's some comfort and safety in going with the name brand. I think that's why a lot of people go to the sort of default brands like D&D.
And real talk. I mean, real talk here. I get it, because if you're a person, my YouTube comments and my chats and even my Patreon Discord are full of so many stories that go something like this. I am really getting exposed to these new ideas of these new games. I'm so excited to try it. My players have no interest in changing. They only want to play 5e. And locally, there's not a chance in hell that I would be able to get this game going on off the ground. That is a real thing. And I get it. I totally respect the hell out of the fact that there are, for some people, it is not an option. I will say that there are, small internet communities where, yes, maybe in your local area, there's not a ton of people playing Pendragon, but there's a King Arthur Pendragon Discord. There's places like Knights of the Last Call and stuff like that where we have people who are interested in these games. And sure, you're not going to find 10 million people to play with, but maybe you find 100. So, I think you do have to put a little more work in, Mark. And
one of our chatters said that they only back glow in the dark RPG Kickstarters, Derek.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe that's the wave of the future, because now I can release a Kickstarter and do everything. And then 6 months later, when I need a revenue bump, I do another Kickstarter and I go, it's the exact same thing, but this time it's all glow in the dark. That's right. Even the books, everything is glow in the dark. And it could be yours for the low price of $399.95.
Mm-hmm. So I keep thinking, so my favorite quote of all time, Oscar Wilde, there are only two tragedies in life.
Right.
One is not getting what one wants, and the other is getting it. Because this is exactly where we now stand. Because I remember as a kid,
sure,
no one was playing D&D, no one was into geek culture, and I just wish, oh boy, like if people knew, they would be so happy.
Monkey's Paw.
In the 80s, it was Monkey's Paw. And then that's in the 80s. Go to 2000s. That's when Lord of the Rings is released. Harry Potter is like exploding, and everyone is starting to get into fantasy. And Iron Man comes out, and suddenly Marvel is getting popular. And I'm like, and Jurassic Park came out, I'm like, wow, geekdom is becoming mainstream. Then cut to the year 2024. I go to Disney World. Every single person there at Disney World is wearing a Iron Man or Spider-Man t-shirt. Every single person there is decked out in Star Wars.
But are you sad about that?
Yes.
No. Let me be very clear about something here. Let me be very clear about something. When I make these statements, it is I am not upset that because Lord of the Rings, people got into fantasy and maybe they got into D&D. That's actually awesome.
Great.
No, that part's good. Awesome. That's good.
Okay. What I don't like is that the way that they got to that place is by, in my opinion, weakening the experience of the brand.
Yes.
Right? Like if nothing changed about it and it naturally grew and it became this tour de force, and the player base or the interest base just grew and grew and grew. Like I personally don't think Lord of the Rings, the films, made that many. They made some, mainstream modifications, right? I mean, those movies were very successful, despite the fact that I remember people literally being in the movie theater, especially the third one, and being like, "Oh my God, is this movie ever going to end?" Whereas I'm like, why didn't they include the Scouring of the Shire? So my point is, it's like they didn't compromise and they created this brand and it brought people into the game. But now that we're in that place, now it's like, well, yeah, but how do we get the next 10% growth, the next 20% growth? And
they have to do nothing but compromise to make
they have
the
to start
brand
compromising,
grow.
and they have to start
and it dilutes the brand.
But when you were a kid in the 80s, Steven, did you never go, what would happen if like Spider-Man met this person from this other friend? Like, wouldn't you have dreamed about being able to cross over your favorite IPs into like one kind of amalgam thing?
Yes and no, because then they actually started doing them, and you got like Freddy versus Jason, and that movie was terrible. Most of those crossovers ended up being
Batman Superman crossovers. Some of those were pretty good.
No, well, I was never into those. I was only into like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Zot and like very independent comic books. I actually never read Marvel and I never read DC. I only read things like Image and Mirage.
He's so cool. He only reads Image.
That's
and Mirage.
right. That's right.
Oh boy.
I was like, no. Well, I just.
What about the Batman crossover with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Never read it. Sorry.
You said that you were.
I do have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. First printing. How about that?
There you go.
Then number 2.
So again, yeah, I for one enjoy that the hobby has become more. So I don't have a problem with the base of people who are playing the RPGs. I do have a problem with two things:
the dilution of the brand,
the companies that are, sort of productizing this, and to a certain extent, as consumers, I think it behooves one to be a more informed and active consumer, than just being this passive person who just goes, well, now that I'm in now that I'm a role player, I expect I expect everything to be catered for me. I started playing RPGs in 2018. I'm old school. And the industry and what people make and what they're building and what they're releasing should be for me. And, and I represent this vast majority of people who want to be bought and sold games.
How many people say that?
I don't know.
I've seen some people say that, but I don't feel like that's a lot of people who are just like, everything has to be for me.
Well, no. Usually what you hear is somebody like defending, like, not everything has to be for everybody. People try to like defend that because the reason why that is a sort of truism is because there's this baseline assumption of, well, this book came out and it wasn't for me, and I'm very upset about that. So.
Yeah.
Well, this started out as a fun topic and ended kind of depressing.
Even early on, we talked about how civilization might be going on the downswing into the Roman circus of carnival blood. Right. So I don't know. There were definitely some.
Hey man,
ups and
maybe
downs.
this is why
a roller coaster with you, Steve.
This is why Terrifier is
right.
#1 at the box office, because people are like immune to seeing what I just saw this Red Letter Media documentary thing they did on The Exorcist, and how in the 70s when The Exorcist came out, people were fainting in the theaters and had to leave. And it is like so, like you would watch that would be on like Saturday morning cartoon shows. Like The Exorcist is so mundane compared to like The Terrifier, where they're dismantling and dismembering children and showing it. It is like we've gotten to that level. It is actually snuff. But it's my friend, my Pathfinder group. They said, yeah, that's basically snuff porn at this point, and that's gone way too far. And yet, that's what people want. People want that. So what's next?
Yeah. By the way, as an example, recent data, average 18-year-old spends over 8 hours a day looking at a screen.
Oh, I spend way more than that.
Because like
that's crazy.
They bring computers to use in the classroom now in a lot of schools.
I know. So it's crazy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you're saving all those trees.
That is true, and I do like trees, but I also am a woodworker. So,
it was fascinating because there was this whole thing about energy crisis.
I love, I'm talking to the wrong people because like Cranky's first like 8 hours, amateurs, and
I know, I'm like 8 hours. I'm like, please, I wake up, I'm in front of my screen basically from morning, noon, and night. Like this is all I sit in this chair all day, and the only time I'm not sitting in chair is when I'm eating, and then I come back to the chair. Like I gotta
get out. I gotta walk the dogs. I gotta get to the park. I
try to walk to get exercise, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm usually reading a screen while I'm walking because I can do it.
Oh no, I listen to podcasts when I'm walking. So.
I can walk for a few hours and read something.
You know what I do? Nothing. I just listen to nature.
No, I can't.
My
I
brain
can't. I
will
love
not
to
let
listen
me
to
do that
podcasts.
without doing some weird stuff. So reading helps me be more meditative about the walking.
Yeah,
Fair
no,
enough.
no, I can't. So I guess our future is everything is derivative. Everything is, you wanted more Star Wars. There's more Star Wars and more Star Trek and more Marvels than you'll
Right.
ever know what to do with
Co-branded Star Trek Wars.
Yeah, but I mean, like, like
for the rest of your life.
I mean, basically, I'm not saying we're there yet, but right, there's this idea, right, which people call the peak internet, right, which is the idea that the internet reached a certain point where it became so self-referential that it stopped innovating. And you see this in TV shows, the classic trope of like, where characters become tropes of themselves. And so they essentially you have this feedback, and rather than the characters grow and develop, they basically just double, triple, quadruple down into their shticks, right? So you have this idea of peak internet, right? Well, maybe we're just getting to the point of peak RPG.
The RPG singularity where everything sort of combines down.
Yeah, it's just one homogenous mass of innovation stops. I mean, there may always be the Mark and Stevens of the world who are creating
I was about to say, we come up with some pretty innovative stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm not even going to lie. I am still honestly kind of shocked at Eldamon because each of those elements is so different and it's such a massive tome. And I'm like, and this is from a guy who obviously designed and worked on a very big game to begin with. And it's like, how did you have anything left after that? Like, it's just crazy to me.
It was a backbreaking amount of labor, and it was also required some very heroic playtesters to even playtest all of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Stuff. But it's very hard. But I guess I've got a lot of game design up in here, but I can't do walks in nature. So it's like those things where you, because my brain will keep going. So it's like those things where you buy like a bonus that also gives you a different penalty. Right.
Mark had to take that flaw in order to gain that.
That's
that perk,
right.
That perk. Yeah, he's a GURPS
There's
character.
new areas. There's areas to innovate because I'm thinking about like even our new stuff that's coming out. You'd be surprised when you see
plenty of areas to innovate. But what Derek is saying, it might collapse into a co-branding singularity where innovation doesn't happen, not because it can't, but because, like you were saying, Stephen, with your point about the magic sets, the oxygen is given to the co-branding over the innovation.
Well, there was always like, you can look these up, these quotes. There's like that guy who wrote like in the 1905 who wrote, everything that was to be invented has been invented, and that's like a very famous quote. And there's all these quotes of like, nothing more will ever come after this. And there's hundreds of these quotes in like huge newspapers, like that invention has done, like we're done with invention, like there's no more to come out with.
People always say that, and then something gets invented,
and then there's and then there's something
shakes things up.
Yeah, and then there's always some brand new innovation that just like shakes everyone up.
In most of our lifetimes, for most of us, right, the internet was essentially not a thing. It was strictly restricted to a handful of small universities and military installations. And now you think about how pervasive, right, the internet and the World Wide Web is to every aspect of your existence.
Well, it gets even worse than that because my son lost in China. He lost his wallet, and he's like, no big deal. Lose your wallet like 20 years, 30 years ago, that would have been the end of your life. But if you lose your phone, forget it, man. Because I actually thought I lost my phone. I was with you, Derek. Remember?
We were at Gen Con.
We were at Gen Con, and and my phone was gone. And you
were like, I don't know how I'm going to get to my hotel. I don't know how I'm going to get to my flight. I don't know. I don't know.
Everything is on my phone, and Derek found my phone.
So the solution is 2 phones.
It's not a bad solution.
If your son's wallet had his passport, he still would have been pretty.
He was. It didn't have his passport.
If he lost his passport,
the passport
in a foreign country.
Yeah, no, his passport was at the hotel. But the point is that it's just like, think about it. Like 15 years ago, no one even had a cell phone, or very few did. And now it's like your cell phone is your life.
Do you remember when I was really little? So Stephen might have actually like seen these more. There were TV shows where like the one character who was trying to be cool and tech trendy would have this gigantic monstrosity.
Yeah,
I mean, look
phone.
at that. It's a
Wall
mobile
Street.
phone that person
Look at the movie
has.
Wall Street. That's a big part of it where Douglas, Kurt Douglas is
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. I see, Kurt Douglas.
Gordon Gekko.
Right, and he's talking on the beach with a brick cellular phone to show how
But it's
powerful
interesting.
he was.
I don't remember where I read it, but I don't know if it was like in a, I don't know, or maybe I watched it. It was like some sort of like director round table or something like that. But they were saying how there's been a renaissance lately of movies and TV shows that are all set in the 80s and the 90s because cell phones basically like ruin.
And they ruin
movies.
everything.
They just ruin everything.
No, they do. That's true. That's
like they ruin storytelling.
Yeah, well, look
right?
up Friends. There's a thing where they said, let's look at Friends, to modern day Friends, and it shows them all sitting around the coffee shop on their phones.
Right.
And no one's talking to each other, and then you just hear a laugh track going on randomly. And that's it. It's basically 2 minutes of them doing nothing. And that's exactly right. I actually do that. I look around. I purposely try to not look on my phone in certain, it's like when I'm at a baseball game and stuff. It's like I try very hard not to.
Well, you played an RPG with me, and you know that I have a rule, which is I get that you people have kids and wives and husbands and businesses or whatever, and I understand that, and you're an adult. But if you need to be on the phone, I ask that you get up from the table. Like I don't want you here and on your phone.
Right, and and that's the thing. It's like I look around, everyone's on their phones, man. It's like everyone's.
But it's not just that they're on their phones, right? It's just that so much of our dramatic exposition is sort of like, oh, there was a misunderstanding, or they didn't quite understand how that works, and now you're like, hey Siri, what is this? And it's like, that is probably this, and you just, it's like easy, and you're like, oh, but what if there's a misunderstanding? And you're like, text somebody like, wait, are you coming or not? Oh no, Dan, I went to a different party. Oh, okay, I'll meet you there. Like drop me a pin, drop me a location.
Well, what happened?
Right? Like
I know
all these crazy things are just,
Well, I've been working on this project, and it's getting kind of crazy. And they're setting up meetings, and they're setting up Zooms, and they're like sending emails back and forth. And I was like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. I literally picked up my phone and I called the guy. And that was literally the first time I've ever spoken to this person in 6 months. I've been working with this person for 6 months. I've never spoken to them on the telephone. And then I was like, I can't take it anymore, man. Let's use this device for what it was made for. And that's actually talking. And boy, we got everything we needed done instead of having to go back and forth in endless emails and try to figure out a time to meet on fucking Zoom. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Right, just pick up the
damn phone.
Lalagoo said, I've also tried that before, but most people won't buy into that, which is everybody puts their phones in the center of the table, and the first one who picks it up has to buy for the table. Buy all the food and drink, which I love.
I'd love.
That's a very common one.
I'd love to go out with anybody who's using that rule.
Oh, I can do that.
I'll never have to pay.
Yeah, I'll never have to pay either. I can go a long time.
My buddy got mad because I was joking about I was like, what I want to create. Because he's one of those people perennially just always on his phone. I was like, I want to create like a small pocket, like electromagnetic interference, like thing that
it's
I can
illegal.
switch. I know, and that's
it's heavily illegal.
He goes, those are illegal, right? Why would you even think about doing something like that? Like that's
heavily illegal.
And I was like, I don't. Just that way, everyone loses signal, and they're like, well, my phone is a brick.
They were fooling around with that technology in movie theaters and like plays and stuff. And
I would love that.
And they were like, they were getting in trouble, and that's when they confiscate because they wanted people not to record and stuff. So just give you an idea of how little I look at my phone. That my kids and my wife yell at me all the time because they're like, why didn't you look at your message? I'm like, dude, I never look at my phone. They gave me a piece of paper that literally says, please pick up clothes and cleaner. Because they know if they texted me, they'd be, because they went out and they'll be back and they're like 7 tonight. They'll be like, why didn't you get the stuff from the cleaner? Because I never look at my phone. I don't care.
Couldn't they send you a ping on something that's on your computer?
It doesn't matter. I don't care. Unless it's on Discord. That's pretty much the only thing.
There you go. They could Discord ping you. So
they're not
Steven
on Discord.
Stanley, if you're watching this, which I know you don't,
they're not.
You should ping him on Discord.
Discord I'm on all the time.
Or you can take the strategy that Jess Redicott mentioned in one of the previous episodes, which was if she couldn't get through to Steven about things, so she would just ping me to ping Steven. So if Steven's family needs him to pick up the clothes, they can ping me on Discord.
Well, that's what I tell them. Like, write it on a piece of paper. I'm old school, and it works.
One of my favorite recent memories was so during COVID, a buddy of mine, I've been friends with him 20 years. A buddy of mine who was in San Francisco, he temporarily moved back to Cleveland during COVID and just crashed with me. And so he lived with me for almost about 8 months or something like that. And gave him my guest room and then whatever. But we were a couple months in, and he went, man, he's like, I got to say something. He's like, I'm actually feeling a lot better. And I go, why? He's like, for years, I always thought you were just blowing me off, and I would send you messages, and then you wouldn't respond. And I would be like, until like the next day or later, like 11 at night and saying like, oh, I just saw this. And I always thought you were just blowing me off. He's like, but I've been living with you now for the last 3 months. And he goes, man, you will literally put your phone on the counter when you come in and then go upstairs. And then you won't come down till the next morning to get it. He's like, you just do not have your phone on you. And he's like, and I just didn't even think that was something that people could do, or did do. Yeah.
That's the other thing. Everyone I know sleeps next to their phone. My phone stays in my office, and then when I go to sleep, people are like, "Oh, what's you?" I'm like, "My phone's not near me. I leave it down in my office. I don't bring it to the bed." My wife has her phone, my kids have everyone has their phone next to their bed.
And while I do use digital tools, and I work as a data scientist.
I read on Kindle, but actually that's only because at night I can light it up. I don't have to turn on anything. But.
And obviously, Stephen, you and I, as fits our backgrounds, are fans of the analog experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but cool. I got to run.
Yo, that's right. 5 o'clock. You got to go do your racquetball. I got to go pick up the dry cleaning. Pick up dry cleaning. Mark has to do whatever Mark does.
Design another.
He has to go walk around the block while reading a book.
Yeah, I might do that actually later on. I'm working a little bit on the Snow Soul ancestry for Your Titans. That's the last one that I have to write. So I'm going to be in better shape once that one is done. And since my brother is coming back from Africa tomorrow afternoon, so I want to get some stuff out of the way now.
Oh, tomorrow, I don't know where you guys live. Probably same thing. It's supposed to be 80 degrees.
It is 70.
Yeah, it's 75 right now.
Today, yeah.
And where I live is basically, it's not a cul-de-sac. It's like, it's a circle.
81 degrees tomorrow for us.
It's like a circle. So all the kids come because they would park their car, and then the kids can walk around the circle, and it's something like 50 houses. So it's perfect. So they walk, they get all the candy, and then they go home because it's it's a perfect circle. So where I live gets insane. Well, absolutely insane.
Normally, I would agree with you, except around here, it's very popular now that people don't bring their kids trick-or-treating. They do the trunk-or-treating, and they do it in the... Yeah, so it's very popular. In fact, I would argue that most of my friends who have kids, that are like in the 8, 9, 10,
trunk or treating.
What's trunk or treating? Do they just open the trunk of their car?
So all the parents go to a parking lot, and they all park like almost like a car show, and they all sit in their trunk, and they have like the candy in their trunk, and then the kids, it's during the middle of the day in like a parking lot, and it's almost like there's aisles. It almost looks like Gen Con.
Yeah, they did that it was like a COVID thing, I think.
And no, they've been doing it before.
Oh, were they doing it? Okay.
And that way it's done like on a weekend when the parents don't have to work and the kids don't have school the next day.
Got it.
And it's safer. There's cops around. Like you're in this very constrained area. It's during the middle of the day. You can just do it on your leisure. And so I've noticed that there's just been just almost no trick-or-treaters nowadays because, I mean, you might get like the older kids, but like the young kids with their parents, at least around here, they almost all do trunk or treat.
I don't know something happened because where I lived, it was like not that busy. And then The Secret came out. And now like this is the place to go. And I actually think I'm going to go get more candy because we are going to get, between the fact that I already get a gargantuan, I mean, we're talking hundreds, not like 50, hundreds of trick-or-treaters. It's going to be 81 degrees and nice out tomorrow. Man, it might be like a record. So I think I'm going to
I remember being mad as a kid because my mom would make me wear my coat because it was like 40 degrees and snowing.
Well, I was about to say, about 15 years ago, I went trick-or-treating with my kids and it was snowing on Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. Now
and it was like snow. It was cold.
Now it's 80, it's crazy.
And I would say, I remember when I was a kid, it was cold as hell. It was always cold.
Yes,
And now it's 81.
Right.
Don't worry about it. We're fine.
Listen, you give it another 20 years, Ohio will be like the Sun Belt. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Can't wait. It'd be good for baseball. Tell you that much.
I live next to one of the world's largest sources of fresh water. I am okay.
All right. Well, that was fun. And what are you talking about tomorrow on your show, Derek?
I don't know if I'm doing a show tomorrow. I need to talk to my patrons.
It's trick-or-treating.
It's trick-or-treating, and a lot of people will not be around or available. They're doing stuff, but I might hop on there. I mean, some people want me to do like a horror game review, but I'm not really much of a horror fan, so I'm kind of the wrong person to talk about that.
You're bad,
and I'll be doing and we reached a tip goal, so I'm going to do a Sunday stream as well. So I'll be theoretically streaming 1 to 2 more times this week, and then after that, I don't know.
Sounds good.
Lo Rosario says, "Go Dodgers." I agree. Go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers.
They don't play tonight, though, right?
Yeah, they do.
They do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Game 5.
In
New York.
Oh, okay.
No team has ever gone to a Game 6 after going 3-0.
There you go.
Except one in history.
Wow.
In baseball.
And it's not like the Dodgers are a fluke. I mean, they're an incredible team. So
the Dodgers are unbeatable. They are ridiculous how good they are. And well, I won't get it. I could go into this for hours, as Derek knows, because
yes, I do.
I know.
But we've got to let him get to his record.
Gotta let you go.
We can do that next time.
Tell
us why the Dodgers are unbeatable.
My balls are racketed, not based. So
yes, you go do your racquetball, and I will do my tennis, and Mark will do his walking. So there we
awesome.
go.
All right, sounds good. Well then, everyone. Until next time, I guess if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat. Take care.
Bye, everybody.